All right, we're just going to give it another just a couple minutes. This is the first meeting of the year, so we're still kind of getting settled in. If everyone doesn't mind, we'll just have a couple minutes, and I think the CEO will be joining us shortly. So, thank you. All right, welcome everyone. This is for real now. We are recording. First meeting of 2026. Just want to thank everyone for making the time to be here tonight. We acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional owners of the greater Fremantle-Woluwe area, and we recognize that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important today. And I also acknowledge that we meet here today on land that was never ceded, and I wholeheartedly support the many campaigns for truth-telling, justice, and reconciliation here and across the country. So for people that have not been here before, tonight is our meeting where we focus on a lot of planning matters. So we've got some people that have signed up to speak on planning items. And if you want to speak during public question time, that's great. Or you can speak before the item. If you speak before the item, that gives councillors the ability to ask questions and staff to ask questions if there are any. So when we come to you, if you wanted to speak before the item, by all means, you're more than welcome to do that then. And then also, because we've got a fair few people to speak on an item or two, we may try to move those forward in the agenda, so you don't have to stay here through the whole meeting. You're more than welcome to, of course, but you don't actually have to. But I will remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live online. And while all care is taken to maintain privacy, visitors in the public gallery and members of the public submitting a question, you may be captured in the recording. So just be aware of that. We have two elected members who are on leave of absence, and that's Councillor Graham and Councillor Van Dorsen. Do we have to approve those? It's been so long. No, just acknowledge them. Okay, great. Are there any other applications for leave from any elected members? No? All right, great. We'll shake off the dust before we're done, don't you worry. Any disclosures of interest from elected members? Seeing none, all right, we'll move on to responses to previous public questions taken on notice. And there are none that I see there, so that's great. And now we move into public question time. So during public question time, people can speak for up to 3 minutes on any item that you may wish to speak to. So I'll go through the list of names here, and if you want to speak during public question time, feel free to go up to the mic. We'll have 3 minutes where there'll be a little bell, and at that point in time, if you haven't wrapped up your comments, please get there as quickly as you can, because we have quite a few to get through. All right. So for public question time, we have Darren Bracewell, but that's also a petition, which is later. But if you want to speak now, you can speak now. That's fine.
Okay, good evening. Thank you to the opportunity to speak directly to councillors and senior staff. Leighton Beach is no longer just a local swimming spot. It has evolved into a vibrant year-round precinct. With its spectacular amphitheatre, busy barbecue facilities, growing hub of hospitality venues, and one of Perth's largest by membership surf clubs, it is a premier destination for Perth families. However, this popularity has created a high-density pedestrian zone. Leighton Beach Boulevard serves as one of the only 3 critical connection points to the beach and water, yet currently lacks the safety framework to match the high foot traffic. We know from global traffic guidelines and studies that speed is the single greatest factor in pedestrian survival. The data is confronting. At 50 kilometres an hour, a pedestrian has just a 10% chance of survival, or at the best, serious injury. At 40 kilometres an hour, the current speed limit along Leighton Beach Boulevard, that chance improves to 40%, but still unacceptable. At 30 kilometres an hour, the survival rate jumps to 90%. That 10% difference is the difference between tragedy and a near miss. This statistic alone provides the moral and logical evidence required to act. Leighton Beach Boulevard is not a major thoroughfare or an arterial road. At best, it functions as a service road for residents, local businesses and beachgoers. In 2015, the City of Fremantle supported our request for a 30 kilometre/hour speed limit and made a submission to Main Roads. But Main Roads WA were constrained by rigid policies at the time and only allowed a 40 kilometre/hour limit. Recently, Main Roads has relaxed these criteria, finally opening the opportunity for us to implement the safety standards the community deserves. This is not just a personal request, it has overwhelming community support. In my residential complex alone, 28 of the 30 residents are in favour of the speed reduction, with similar levels of support across the entire Leighton Beach Boulevard. This is a low-cost, high-impact and easily reversible solution. All is required are 2 new speed limit signs at either end of the street. I urge you to support this petition and help us ensure that Leighton Beach remains a safe sanctuary for everyone. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, we also have Dee and John Gow here to speak on something that's not on the agenda. Do you want to each of you can speak for up to 3 minutes? Perfect, wonderful. Right up there when you're ready. Thank you.
Good evening. We're the owners of 7 and 9 Sydney Street and 12 and 14 Jenkins Street, South Fremantle. These properties border 11 Sydney Street, a property owned by a councillor. We purchased our property in 2004 and since that time have actively engaged with the council staff for the renovation, in inverted commas, to be completed. The state and condition of 11 Sydney Street is well documented with the council by us, and we are variously fobbed off with excuses that building permit is being renewed, council solicitors are involved, no one is living there, and so on. Now, we have some good tenants, we're getting good rents, and we are house pride. We look after our property, and we would expect the same of our neighbours. It is clear that the matter is in the too hard basket for the council, and I've endeavoured to speak with the CEO, but have been unable to do so. To my mind, the property presents occupational health and safety risks. It's an unfenced building site and therefore a risk to the general public. There's no display of building contact details. There are vermin and health risks attached to neglected and vacant property, and it devalues all the properties in the street, including ours. The list is endless. I feel this is a Sagrada Familia in Fremantle. It seems to be going on forever, and I would ask the council to seriously take some form of action to ensure that this renovation is completed and that we can have a reasonable street in which our tenants and our other occupants can live. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dee. I appreciate that. And John, did you wish to speak on this or no?
I wasn't intending to speak, but I will. Look, this has just gone on long enough. we've had 15 years of the council administration fobbing us off about what they're doing, what they're not doing, what they cannot do, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop. This place is a derelict. The windows are all broken. It's a two-storey place. The windows are all broken upstairs. There's supposedly no one living. I've seen people coming in and out of the place. Whether these are simple street hobos that are living there, it's a mess. Some of you should just take a drive past there, walk past it and have a look. Would you like to live next to a place like this? Ask yourself that question. The trees are overgrown. I've just had my son there cleaning up the overgrown trees that are growing into the place next door under number 9 Sydney, which is our house. We have had people there cleaning up now for a whole day the overflowing branches. The back of this yard is an absolute mess. No one does anything. We phone up the council. Well, we get told, oh no, we can't talk to the CEO. Well, someone will be looking at it. Someone will be coming back to us. Someone does come back to us. Oh yes, we're looking at it. We've got it on our itinerary. We know what's the problem. But no one ever does anything. When is this council going to do something about it? Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. I'll hand that over to the CEO to make a comment because these just came through to most of us today. So,
thank you through the chair. I can advise council that we are dealing with the property in question at the moment, and we have issued a building order on the property, and officers are working with the owner of that property to resolve the issues. That building order was issued on the property probably early to mid last year, and we're still engaged. As with all these matters, they're not always quite so simple, and we do work with our residents, whether they be elected members or just normal residents, to make sure we resolve the matter.
great. Thank you. Next, we have Peter Walter for an item that's not on the agenda. Peter? No. Okay. All right. So rather than going through all the rest of the names that we have here to speak, I'll just ask, is there anyone that wishes to speak during public question time and not before the item on the agenda? Yes, please. Just state your name when you speak so I can take you off, please.
Yeah, I'm Margot Tobin and I'm speaking about agenda item number 5, which is the development proposal at 7 Christina Parade in North Fremantle. So I'm the co-owner of 90 Thompson Road, which is on the east boundary of the proposed development at 7 Christina. My husband sends his apologies because he's overseas. We've lived there since 2009 and we rebuilt our 1905 house and added an extension some time ago. But more importantly, we developed gardens within the property and on our verge. And in that time, we've had 3 lovely families occupying 7 Christina Parade, and they've added to the friendly, sociable neighbourhood that we have. The proposed development is overdevelopment of a 339 square metre lot. The new owner has never lived there. The proposal is effectively two separate dwellings, which could be rented out, and it doesn't look like an ancillary dwelling. This overdevelopment will adversely impact our neighbourhood, particularly us. Our neighbours also wrote and have had some concessions, but we haven't. On our side, it relies on the granting of an adverse possession claim over a public access way of 0.9 metres in width. The proposed east boundary wall is too close to our property with or without this adverse possession claim. The privacy screens aren't high enough, although they do meet the WA minimum standard. So the other point is the scale of the development. It is like an entire second residence. The one that's there is already a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-lounge room house, and there's a lot more being added. A living space, well, something that was a studio which looked like a second bedroom's now become a living space. So the planning officer has said on page 57 under the officer comments that it's not counted as the floor area requirements for an ancillary dwelling. So that's not clear to me. So we're asking that the council not approve the proposal as it is now until the boundary wall on the east side, our side, is set back to the legal requirements. And that's all stated on page 59 of your agenda. And I would also ask that the council not approve the proposal until the results of this adverse possession claim over a public access way is known. And I do feel like the applicant has tried to find ways around the planning guidelines, which are there for all of us to protect our neighbourhood amenity. Thank you.
Thank you, Margot. Did the director want to, or anyone want to respond to the adverse possession and the boundary wall questions?
Through the
No, we'll have the staff respond from the report, yeah.
through the chair, if the owners register to speak, they may choose to respond in that component. The adverse possession claim is over the public access way, so it's not part of this lot at the moment. Any of the assessment has been undertaken assuming the boundary stays where it is. So if the adverse possession claim occurs, really just this person's lot boundary would change to where the edge of the pedestrian access way would be. So that access way is there now. And if the owner is successful in their adverse possession claim, that would just become part of their property, and that same area of setback would still be there.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak during public question time? Yes.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. It's regarding the Wool Stores skate spot, and just like to say, I'm not a property owner. I don't have anything to my name, but that's somewhere where I grew up, and I spent a lot of time with people I loved, people I still love, people like, there's so many memories there. Like, it's a community area that really holds a special place for a lot of people, and it would be devastating to see it go. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else to speak during public question time? Yes. And please state your name when you start, so that way I can make sure we don't call you twice.
Hi, my name's Shannon Cooney. I'm a resident of Fremantle for over 30 years, on and off, majority here, ratepayer in Beaconsfield, and I just wanted to add my voice. I might not be the typical person that you'd think of when you think of the Wool Stores skateboarding people, but I know as a teacher of students in this area for a long time at both the old South Fremantle Senior High and additionally very close by to Fremantle, and a lot of our kids come down here at Melville, is that Wool Stores holds a special spot, and just like the previous speaker, I think the cultural significance can't be overstated, because even my children who are now adults, they have very fond memories of even not skateboarding, but going past there, walking past, seeing people there. It felt like a safe place where people could be in public, but still be themselves. And I think if we lose that to big business and to a kind of whitewashing of Fremantle, I think that is a very sad thing, and we're seeing that in a few places around at the moment. Some of the old spots like Hungry Jack's and things have gone, but for those of us who've been around for a while, it holds a very dear spot for me, and I know for many of the young people I've worked with, it has been an important place when home wasn't safe, and also to meet people in a really positive, proactive way. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Yes.
My name's Danny. I'm a lifetime skateboarder, and from a young age I came from England, like many people have, to come here and dwell, and I thought Fremantle was very just creative, beautiful place. And when I saw as a young age people skating there, people like Roland sitting over there, and the older blokes as well, they just inspired me to go down and have a try, and it was so welcoming and such a beautiful place. And I think, yeah, once again, adding to that, building more houses, more places for people to live. They're just rabbit hutches, they're small places, and it happens everywhere. Can we not have some culture, some life to Fremantle? So just like to say that, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Danny. Okay, I saw another hand for the care to speak during public question time. Yes, please.
Hi, I did speak at another meeting here just before when the meeting actually voted that the skate ledge as it is at the moment should stay more intact, and it was the most wonderful outcome to see so much goodwill going towards these youngsters. In the vein of the teacher, my fellow teacher over there who was talking, and yeah, we understand how important that place is for them, and it was down to you guys that it looked really hopeful that they were going to be able to keep skating there. So that was an absolute joy, that council meeting. Then, of course, it was so sad when Hesperia, or the new name it's got, Urban something, changed that and managed to change it up in Perth. It's just such a sad thing to happen to Fremantle, and especially actually when the new housing that may look like rabbit hutches and may look like cheap places actually isn't. You know, like there's very few people who could own that affordable accommodation when it's going to be $850,000 for a studio with scant amenities, lots of shared amenities. So I don't see it as a contribution to the community that way, or helpful with affordable housing. Certainly not for young families, was certainly not for young couples just starting out. Okay, so that's that, but that's going ahead. We know that's going ahead. That's done and dusted because of the move of the powers that be. But I was reading Jemima's amendment to the bill, which was so good to read, that Jemima had noticed that in the latest proposal for the for the streetscape, is it around, that skateboarding wasn't mentioned at all. So it was just not even not even mentioned about the street furniture, about the plan for community access around the building. So I'm just really glad to see that Jemima had put that together, and she'd made 3 valuable points there. And I just think that most of us are thoroughly, absolutely behind that this WASO, this wonderful organisation that Rowan and his friends have put together, is it WASO or WASA? One's the orchestra, one's the skateboarders, I'm not sure. Anyway, it's the skateboarder one, that they should be involved in planning, the community access there, and they should have a say in putting together some street furniture that's probably skateable, or actually in the park next to Clancy's have that, replica of the old skate ramp, something there. There's all sorts of ideas. I know Andrew Sullivan had a few ideas there too. Anyway, that's all. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, what was your name? Kirsty. Thank you, Kirsty. Great. Yes, do you wish to speak in public question time? And please state your name.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is David Bohemia. Look, I'm here to support a planning application, C2604, for some in an industrial units in 4 Pritchard Street. If I can give you some background behind this, we are pretty much just a light industry. There's a lot of automotive stuff going on through there. There's some brewing of coffee beans and what have you. So this application is for Muck Studios, who are proposing to do some pottery teaching, as well as a place that people can come along and carry on if they already know how to do these things. So for us, I'm actually speaking as an owner, but also on behalf, I am the strata representative for that complex. And we see that as this is a great thing for us. The people that come along are certainly different from the guys that come through during the day, in as much as, they're more arty. They bring a lot more. Their general community spirit is probably the thing, whereas during the day it's people come through, just do what they have to do, pass this, that, and off they go. Whereas Muck Studios clientele come through with, hey everybody, they're all very nice and relaxed and down to earth sort of guys. So we see it as a very big positive for that unit complex. We can't see any downsides to it. For us, we've got plenty of parking. Most of their work is going to be, during the day, late afternoon sort of thing. Okay, there's a interlocking between the 9-to-5 jobs, but that's the smaller part of their business. Most of their business happens really after hours, after that 6 to 9 or 10 o'clock. So there's plenty of parking there for them. Our toilet facilities are well suited for that sort of thing, to the extent also to support their clientele. We've redone the toilets, freshened it up, made the security, not cameras, security lighting, all that sort of stuff, so that especially the lady folk who attend will be a lot more relaxed going through to the dark areas where the toilet facilities are located. So it's kind of made us look a little bit outside for what we do every day as well, which has now also helped the unit complex itself. It's an 8-unit complex, and we've got the support of 6 of the 8 people. One of the other 8 are probably, for some reason, not for it, and the 8th person is neither here nor there. So really, basically, there's only one person who has an objection. I'm not sure if that objection is still current or not, because it seems like, excuse me, that Muck Studios has gone through and addressed all the problems that were potential for this application. So look, it does. So I'd just like to say that it does have our full backing for it. We welcome the diversity in the businesses that are coming through there, and we hope that that yourselves tonight will join us in approving that.
Great, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay, just to remind everyone, once we finish with public question time, we'll get through another little housekeeping bit, and then we'll get to the items on the agenda. So and we'll start with the ones that the people are here to speak on. So it'll be an exercise in trying to keep track of everything, but we'll get through it. So is there anyone else who wishes to speak during public question time? Okay, you're already standing, come on. And please tell us who you are.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Michael Cortis, and I'm here to, no surprises, talk about the wool stores. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay. I must say it's incredibly disappointing to be here again discussing this because, again, skateboarders as a subculture and as a community, we have been ignored and neglected. If not for a last-minute amendment from Councillor Williamson Wong, we wouldn't have had any idea as to what was happening and be totally unaware that we have been omitted from future plans for the wool stores. 35 years of history, 35 years of skateboarding and a world-renowned spot. We were able to convince the Fremantle City Council and the initial development application panel that we have a place at that building, and Condition 38 was approved, then overturned on appeal, and we're in the wilderness again. We were told that you would have a presence here, you would be welcome. We're going to retain 60% of the ledge. Where was that in the current? Where was that in this latest update? It wasn't there. Most of you would look at the wool stores and you would see a derelict, decrepit building. It's disappointing that prominent members of the Fremantle community have described the area as a Bronx. They've suggested that the fact that a group of skateboarders holding up progress is embarrassing. To you all, it may not be the sights of Rome, but to us, it's home. You don't spend 30 years skateboarding in a place and not develop an affinity and an attachment to it. I skate there, my kids skate there. It's a generational thing now, okay? It's very disappointing that we were used constantly in the This Is Fremantle campaign. You've literally used us to bring people into the city of Fremantle and say, this is Fremantle, we do things differently here. What Fremantle does today, Perth does tomorrow. Well, right now, we're just acting like every other major city in the world. We're pushing skateboarders away when we should really be embracing them, because that's who we are. We are kids, we're parents, we're grandparents ourselves. I can assure you, and I'm going to say this to you now, with every fibre of my being, whatever incarnation is left of that ledge, I'm going to skate it and my kids are going to skate it. I don't care how much is left. If you give me 20 centimetres, 20 metres, I will skate that ledge, okay? And all my other friends will, and every other member of the community will, okay? We are going nowhere. We are not giving up, okay? We are harder than you think, okay? And I can tell you right now that all we want is to be included. After 35 years of skateboarding history, we deserve to be heard, we deserve to be seen, and we deserve to be relevant in this deal, guys. Thank you very much for the time to speak to you again. I'm always going to be thankful for the platform that the City of Fremantle gives us. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Michael. Really do appreciate that. There, okay, great.
Sorry, everyone. Just wanted to speak. My name is Yanni, and I'm going to speak about item number 4 regarding Pritchard Street application. So I'm the studio pottery owner, and I just want to say that I'm here to seek your support for the development application for the proposed partial change of use from the current use case in industry to private recreation to enable the continued operation of my pottery studio. I fully support the officer's recommendation for conditional approval. Just by way of background, I acknowledge that the development is currently unauthorised, and I do want to express my genuine appreciation to the city for granting me the opportunity to regularise the use and obtain development approval. As a first-time business owner, the learning curve is very steep in understanding planning processes, zoning requirements and permits. However, once the city brought the need for development approval to my attention, I acted quickly and in good faith. I worked diligently to submit a complete application, respond promptly to requests for information, and ensure the proposal aligned with planning objectives and community expectations. Muck Studio is a small creative business that provides pottery classes and studio access to the local community. There are existing pottery studios as well within the Fremantle area, and just want to further advance that creative community. I fully appreciate the officer's recognition that the proposed land use contributes positively to the O'Connor area by diversifying employment and economic activity. We support local suppliers. There's a pottery supplier store just around the corner. They've gained new business from us as well. And we attract people to the area who then engage with other businesses such as the coffee shop next door who don't sell coffee but only roast beans. These conditions provide appropriate safeguards to ensure the ongoing operation of the studio remains compatible with the surrounding area and continues to operate in a responsible and well-managed manner. I respectfully ask councillors to support the officer's recommendation for conditional approval. Thank you for your time and consideration. And also, just a note to add, I also fully support the Wool Stores full project, and I do hope you guys keep the ledge. Thanks.
Thank you, Yanni. All right. Yes, you'd like to speak during public question time. And don't forget to tell us your name, Rowan.
Just thought I may as well get the speeches out the way now. Yeah, I'm Rowan. I'm the chair of the West Australian Skateboarding Association. I'm a ratepayer in Wycombe Valley. Does that mean something? And I work at the hospital in Freo outside of that. A lot's already been said, but I wanted to express our support for Jemima, or Councillor Williamson-Wong's amendment to the deed. We're shocked that it had no mention of skating in it, despite having 2 years of talks with the developer. It's just reminiscent of a pattern that we've had with them consistently. As we get told, you'll be involved, you'll be part of this precinct, we'll consult with you, and then in all of their actions, they kind of just don't. So the council's been really supportive with the amendment prior to close 2 of the entrances. That was amazing. We even passed that through DAP, and then they went and appealed it, and then it got overturned. Again, we just keep getting told you'll be a part of it. You'll be involved in the design process, and then when there's any option for them to involve us, it doesn't happen. So having an amendment like this, just something in writing, I think would be really important for us. There are sections in this deed of key design principles and stakeholders, so I think it's pretty important to have us in there. Our initial main goal with this was to keep the Wool Stores, the ledge, where it is. For many reasons we've spoken about before, but since losing that DAP thing with the 2 entrances, it's hugely ruined how we'll be there in the future. So we've kind of had to pivot towards the Cantonment Street precinct and still being able to be present in the area and activate the space and have our culture and community there, which will involve, being at the table in the design process, and this amendment will really help us be there. So thanks.
Great, thank you. All right, anyone else for public question time? Yes.
Hi, I'm Jordan Eden. I am a friend and supporter of Yanni at Muck Studios. I've helped her set the business up and have worked with Dave as well. And I just want to say that I've only ever seen positive things come from the pottery business, and very happy to work with the council to do what we need to do to get things across the line. And there's not many places you see a good sense of community, but this business, I've only seen smiling faces and people working together and people enjoying themselves in the city of Freo, which is just really good to see. So thanks for the opportunity. Just want to throw my support behind that, and just because I see it as such a positive place for the area. Thanks.
Thank you, Jordan. All right. Anyone else for public question time? All right, going once, twice. All right, so we'll move on with the agenda. Thank you, everyone, for all those wonderful statements and words. If you are going to stay around, I mean, you're more than welcome to stay, but if you decide that you want to leave, you can always watch it streaming online, or other things. You can watch it tomorrow or the next day. But just wanted to flag that for everyone. But the next up on our agenda is actually receiving the petition that was mentioned earlier. So if you have any other words you'd like to say about that, about the petition, or you just want to read, okay? And I believe Councillor Clark, you would like to receive it. Great. Submit it, sorry. We have a copy. Alrighty, so. I told you we were going to get through this, and we will. Great. Did you wish to say anything about the petition, Councillor Clark?
Yes. I just want to thank Darren for getting everyone together over there in Leighton. We're hearing a lot about traffic calming. It's coming up a lot in our discussions with residents. I don't know if it's because the cars are getting a lot bigger, but they also think they can go faster and just hoon through areas. It's really about resident safety, as you said, and slowing things down a lot through our town. So I thank you and all the residents who've taken the time to pull all that together. Thanks. We'll get onto it.
Wonderful, and thank you. And what that will, the staff will receive that petition now, and they'll provide a response at the earliest point that they can. So as the lead person, you'll get notified of that as well. Great. I don't see any deputations or presentations, so we're on to confirmation of minutes. Now, this was last year's minutes, but can I please have someone moved by Councillor Moughlin, seconded by Councillor Williamson-Wong. All those in favor of accepting those? Unanimous. And elected member communication, Councillor Moughlin.
Thank you. Oh, that's a bit loud. Yeah, I just want to share a couple of pieces of feedback for the city, both formal and informal, related to our commitment, if you like, to community sport and recreation. So late last year in December, middle of December, the Fremantle Masters Swimming Club held their Fremantle Swim Through event at South Beach, and they shared a certificate of appreciation with the city for our support and sponsorship of that event. I went down and represented the city and supported in presenting some of the award winners there, and the ages ranged from people in their late teens to late 70s who had competed in both 1.6 and 3.2 kilometre swimming events. And there couldn't have been a more beautiful day for that. And this is an event that was first held in 1922, then on and off over the years until 2003, and has been held every year since then. So the certificate from the Fremantle Masters Swimming Club was acknowledging that sponsorship, and they look forward to our continued support in the future. And the second piece of informal feedback, the city, and I just want to acknowledge as well city staff for the work that they have done in terms of the sport and recognition night a couple of weeks ago, which recognised sporting achievement in the city of Fremantle. And one of those was the Volunteer Impact Award, which was won by Scott McKenzie, who is the president of the Hilton Junior Cricket Club. And I've known Scott for a number of many years actually, and he's a frank and forthright person, so I really value his feedback. And he said to me that he'd had conversations with many other local cricket clubs, and their interactions with their local governments have been fraught and difficult. And he mentioned that his interactions with the city of Fremantle couldn't have been easier. And I want to acknowledge the work that this council and the city have put into helping our local community realise their goals and aspirations, including which, through that Hilton Junior Cricket Club, was a significant increase in participation, including female participation in cricket.
Great, thank you, Councillor Moughlin. Any other elected member communication? Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thank you. Look, we've been on break for a little bit, and so there's been a couple of things that have happened since we've sat around the chamber. One of which is I think it's important that we acknowledge the, I guess, awful event that happened on Invasion Day in Perth and offer our support for our First Nations community. As we know, there was a bomb that was thrown into the Invasion Day rally, and we have seen a lack of reporting about it as such, especially in Western Australian and mainstream media. And I think as a city that's committed to reconciliation and supporting our First Nations communities, it's important that we, I guess, acknowledge that this has happened in our state, not too far away, and offer support during this awful time. So I just wanted to acknowledge that has happened since we sat. And in slightly more lighthearted and lovely news, one of the events that happened between us sitting for council, or potentially the last night we sat for council, was the Western Australian Music Awards, which were at the Fremantle Arts Centre this year. And the Golden Whammy went to our Freo's own Amber Hatton. And I just wanted to acknowledge her as a fantastic, person in our music world in Fremantle and also Australia. And she helps to she runs all of the music programming down at Honky Tonk and is a great person in the music industry. So I wanted to acknowledge that, we're the home of the arts, and that's clearly reflected in the music and cultural awards as well.
Right, thank you. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Rewinding back a few weeks and speaking of Invasion Day, I just wanted to talk about the Focus Film event that we had at Walyalup Fremantle Arts Centre, showing very, very important films. One of them I'd seen before, but a couple of others I hadn't had the chance to. And we had Thomas Mayo come and speak. And if you have never heard Thomas speak, I've heard him twice now. He's an incredible man, and he really does speak from the heart and in a most beautiful, connecting way, whether you are a fellow Indigenous person or a Wadjala. So it was a terrific event, and I just wanted to thank the city staff who put it on, and our rap group who were all involved in all of that. So thank you very much. And on a second matter, I just wanted to congratulate Jemima Councillor Williamson-Wong. She is not only the youngest councillor that we've had here at the City of Fremantle, but she's now graduated and certified as a lawyer. So to do those two things side by side is a lot of reading and a lot of commitment. So congratulations. I just wanted people to know that you're over the line, and she's official now. It's great. Yeah.
Any other elected member communication? No? All right. Just briefly, because it has been so long, I just wanted to acknowledge also the staff who put together an amazing citizenship ceremony. It was the largest number of new citizens sworn in at the City of Fremantle, with 85 new new citizens, brand new citizens. They're not all babies. But it was held at the Arts Centre, and it was a really, really well-run event, and I was proud to be a part of it. And also, I just want to acknowledge that last night in this chamber, we awarded 3 Citizen of the Year awards. One of those went to a really active group of skateboard enthusiasts. The Western Australia Skateboard Association is the 2026 Active Citizen of the Year award. They won that, so congratulations for you guys for all the work that you put in and will continue to do. And then also we had two Fremantle citizens. One, James Rakich, who was the captain of the Lewin, who has for the past year, I don't know if you remember when a container ship dismasted it, that was the word that I learned on this. He's got that up and running and it will be sailing again soon. So for all his work in the community and for that, and then the other Citizen of the Year was a lady named Freya Cheffers for all of the work that she does to help those less fortunate and other streeties in our community. So just want to acknowledge those three. For folks that weren't there, it was a great evening. All right, so now, if there's no other elected member communication, we'll move on to the agenda. And we may just have to keep this in order with the speakers that we have, just so I don't, get still knocking the rust off. So the first item that I have a speaker for is item 2, and that is Aaron Bell. Is Aaron Bell here? Great. Thank you. The same rules apply. You get about 3 minutes, then you'll hear a bell. And if you haven't finished, please wrap up as quickly as you can.
One of the owners at 171D Holland Street with the new planning for SS 65266, which is to do with the planning from Holland Street around the back of the four complexes and onto Carrington Street. I'm just here on behalf of myself as the owner of D, representatives of owner C's, B and A, and also the chair of the Strata when it comes to the Strata meetings. I've been in contact with the owners of the derelict petrol station that's on Carrington Street, and the problem that we have there is that there is a retaining wall issue from Carrington Street pushing over the retaining walls on the units of Holland Street, primarily B and C, A and C. And I want to make that a public knowledge that we have been in negotiations. I have been personally trying to speak to the Strata manager, or the managers of the complex, which are Signet West. Anyhow, my question is with the planning, which none of us are really opposed to as far as it goes. I'm sure you'll all do an excellent job of making sure that there's parking and bits and pieces and all the rest of it. But just making sure that within the time of demolition, time of redoing the road works, we know there's a road going around the outside, that type of thing, that our properties aren't impacted anymore in regards to damage coming from that development. Now, the primary issue is definitely in Unit C, where the wall, I've sent some photos through, the wall has already been very nearly catastrophically failing through to trees pushing it over, which they have removed. I've had many email conversations with the property managers. Yes, we've got a purchase order, we're going to fix it, we're going to do this. Yes, we'll rectify the wall, we'll make sure it's all good for you. But they're dragging their feet now because obviously there's a development. So if the wall doesn't fall over and kill someone in the meantime, that'll all be great, okay, and we'll all know about that. But we just want to make sure that the walls, the retaining walls around that property of 171 Holland Street, are not going to be impacted for the people that live there because we're all owners of the development anyhow. So, and the last thing as far as that goes is what is the city going to do to ensure that all proactive and protections can be enforced to prevent that wall collapsing in the due course of the development happening or prior to. Okay, is that clear enough?
Thank you, Aaron. Yes, it was.
Okay.
I'm going to refer that to the director for a response if we have one.
Thank you. And through the chair, Mr. Bell's absolutely right. It is the responsibility of both owners. For an existing retaining wall, both owners need to look at that. You have joint responsibility to make sure it's safe. During the construction, that responsibility goes to the builder, and there's instruments in place during the building licence approval that will make that very clear to the builder. If at any time there's concern that they're not building in accordance with the plans, you can call the council, and our compliance officers will come out and have a look. We can use building orders to intervene. But we'd start off encouraging both owners.
I fully understand that. I'm just making sure that we all in this chamber now fully understand that this is the situation now moving forward with the development. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you. Director, all right, so we're on item 2. Can I get someone to move that? Councillor Williamson Wong, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Did you wish to open debate? All right, the item before us is right there. Is there any debate on the item? All right, seeing none, we'll put that up for a vote. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Great. The next item that we had speakers here, and I can still see a few. We'll just move to item 4 because there's still. Oh, we've just voted to approve. Sorry, I did not have you on the. Oh, sorry. Yes, the item wasn't on. My apologies. So that item has been approved now. So please accept my apologies. So we're on item 4. If you wanted to send through your questions just in an email, we can probably get back to you on that. Okay? Yep, great. Can I get a mover for item 4? Councillor Moughlin, and a seconder, Councillor Slaughter. All right, Councillor Moughlin.
Thanks. I'll be pretty brief. I'm supportive of the officer's recommendation for approval, and absolutely support the diversification of business and industry in O'Connor. And I think those who aren't aware of the extent of the economy that occurs in O'Connor are missing out on a huge part of our Fremantle community. I just wanted to ask a question of officers in regards to uses or unauthorised uses of properties, and particularly that in O'Connor, in some of those instances, how the change of use occurs, and how do we actually identify that? And is there an opportunity for us to actually be supporting businesses more so when they are being established? How can we communicate earlier with our business community to help them, such that stress that goes with an unauthorised use after someone's put a lot of blood, sweat and tears into a business?
Through the chair, these unauthorised uses quite often come up because someone realises that maybe they needed to check, or they check on something else and sort of self-report, or there are complaints that are received. We unfortunately don't have a big enough compliance team to do full audits of every property, and I don't know if that's what we would probably seek to do anyway. Without speaking for the Director of City Business, the Economic Development team does have business officers who work really closely with the planning team, and through things like the Invest Freo website are starting to get that connection, particularly with big business and with small business as well. So we're starting to improve on the communication and the education we've got out there. Work in progress, but definitely something we're aware of to try and improve the resources out there for small businesses.
Councillor Slaughter, did you want to add anything as a seconder, or not at this time?
Sorry, yes, I do. Thank you. I just wanted to try and find the right words again, scrolling through this very large report. I'm just really pleased that the city could look outside of the very defined uses and find a way to fit this unauthorised use into what we do have in O'Connor, which is a lot of more heavy industrial, but not solely heavy industrial. And it's a really great thing to have that diversification, as Frank said. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on the item? No? All right, did you wish to close, Councillor Moughlin? No? All right, we'll put that item up for a vote. All those in favour? Wonderful. That's unanimous. You got your approval. Wonderful. Okay, the next item that we had a speaker on was number 5. Is Margaret still here, Margot? Okay, wonderful. Then we'll bring, is there anyone else here to speak on item 5? No. Seeing that, I'll ask for someone to move the item. Yep, Councillor Moughlin, seconded by Councillor Kamada. Oh, great. This is the Christina Parade. Any comments on the item?
No, I haven't got anything.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councillor
A
Armstrong.
question more. Margot, thank you for coming to speak, raised about the the adverse possession claim across the accessway, and I understand that our report is written from the current boundary line as it stands, not including the adverse possession claim, but the report does state that the boundary setback discretion is mitigated by the accessway. So I just was hoping that I guess we can explain how that plays out. And yeah, that's my question.
Through the chair, the meaning of that statement is that in physical spatial terms, that gap is there. So at the moment, it is a pedestrian access way that is in private ownership. It requires access for everyone to use technically, but the applicant, I believe, is seeking that adverse possession claim to then absorb it into their property with the way the site's laid out. If they would need to change their DA to move it to where the boundary is with the properties on Thompson Road.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. I really want to ask a question, I guess, on this one. The floor plans for the upper level, which is obviously the lion's share of the works, basically do show a proposal that is an ancillary dwelling. That's what it's been assessed as. But if you look at it closely, you could actually argue it's two ancillary dwellings. It looks like a bed sit with a separate entrance and a two-bedroom or one-bedroom flat, perhaps, is the other one because the lounge room looks very mysteriously like it could also be a bedroom. We had one like this in South Fremantle where at the planning stage, it was very clearly looking like it was three separate units, one on each level, and the applicant swore that no, it's just a private residence, and yet it's now called the Federal Apartments, and as far as I can tell, is used as three separate bed sits. And we don't seem to have much control over that. So my question is, if it's an ancillary dwelling, that's one thing. We know we deal with those all the time. But if it's actually three Airbnbs on the one site, what is the planning situation with that? And do they need to be applying for that separately, or is it inferred that there can only be two dwellings effectively?
Through the chair, with the recent changes to the Airbnb requirements in planning schemes, if anyone wants to turn their dwelling into a short stay site and rent them all out as separate properties, they would need to lodge a development application under the scheme. So if they did decide to then split them all out and operate them as separate little units and rent them out on Airbnb, they would need to lodge a DA. If there's too much ambiguity for council with the floor plan, with the way it's laid out, perhaps a deferral to request the applicant to change the plans further to remove the sink from the living area. But there's nothing to say you can't have a studio with a kitchen or a living space with a kitchen.
So if they weren't Airbnb and they were just rentals, permanent rentals, again, is that something that requires different planning approval, or can they basically have three different tenancy agreements in the one property?
Through the chair, the planning legislation doesn't cover rental agreements. There's share houses that are possible. People rent different rooms and break up tenancies how they wish. There are limitations to how many people can live in a dwelling, so there's a limit of 6 unrelated people or a very, very large family. So there are limitations. So if all of a sudden there was, too many people across the site, that is something we could investigate. But ultimately, it's what the applicant is proposing is additions to an existing dwelling with the addition of one ancillary dwelling. If they then choose to operate in a different way and insert a full kitchen and spaces, there may be a compliance issue.
I just wonder if, do we need a advice note that clarifies that? Because it does remind me very much of, been there, done that, and, communities around it have to bear the consequences of that, because, it becomes a significant intensification of the actual use of a single residential property. I know that we need more rentals, and certainly a normal ancillary dwelling wouldn't raise too much of a problem for me. But particularly if it's the resident living in the house and renting out a studio out the back, is completely different to having 3 potential rentals all on a very small piece of land. Almost to the extent where the garage underneath could actually end up a rental as well, and all the parking's out in the street and affecting the community. So, we're being told it's one thing. We have to take that at face value, but I am concerned that that the problem can be significantly more than just the built form for the neighbours. It could actually be the way the property is utilised and its impact out into the streetscape and public realm. So perhaps an advice note confirming that could be drafted, if that, yep. And if so, I'd like to move that as a minor amendment.
Great, yeah, because it is clarifying what's the intent. I would absolutely accept that as a minor amendment, but we would just need someone to second that. Councillor Williamson Wong. The wording may take a little bit.
While the wording's been done, just looking at the issue of the 2-storey or the 2nd-storey parapet wall, because that's effectively what it is. It's technically close enough to the boundary, the current boundary, to be a parapet wall. I think the officers, I know that the neighbours are concerned, but given that it's on their western side and the usual overshadowing sort of issues, assessments and the like, it isn't something that rings an alarm bell for me. And while I find the design a little bit clunky and weird, and from an architectural point of view, we're dealing with planning matters, not architectural matters. And it would be something that I would typically approve, particularly given that it's that you can actually utilise the access way, irrespective of who owns it, can actually be incorporated into the consideration of the setback of that. So it's not ringing alarm bells for me, and I wanted to say that because it responds directly to the concerns that have been raised.
Are you happy with those words in front of us? All right, well, then we are on the amendment, because it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other or any comments on the amendment? No? All right, we'll put that for a vote. All those in favor? All those against? Councillor Slaughter against? That is carried. We're back to the item as amended. Seeing no other comments, we'll go ahead and put this one to a vote. All those in favor of the officer's recommendation? And all those against? Councillor Slaughter against. That item is carried as amended. All right, that's number 5. Now the next one that we have speakers on that have not spoken actually is number 6. We have Graham Cameron and Frank Barretto. Did anyone wish to speak to item 6? Either one of you or both, or anyone else? So, and I'll just flag on this one, there is an alternate recommendation as well, and either one of those can be moved and seconded. We can either move the alternate rec because it's been drafted, or what's before us is the officer's recommendation.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Graham Cameron, and our family are the owners of 17 Harwood Street, Hilton. The application before you tonight has been recommended to be refused by the planning officer. It has been rejected on the basis the proposed extension of the existing southern boundary wall will have a detrimental effect on the amenity of our southern neighbour. The application was advertised for public comment and none was received. Tonight I just wanted to let the council know that the relationship with our neighbours is paramount, and we would not be making this application if we had not already discussed it with them and obtained their support. The extension designer is also a neighbour of our southern neighbour and discussed the plans with them directly to make sure they were happy. They will also be making a submission and will be available for questions. Councillor Molson was kind enough to come and inspect the two properties, and I was advised by planning this afternoon an alternative motion had been proposed by him. Having had a quick look at that motion, and given we have the support of our neighbour, I would ask that council vote in favour of the alternative motion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Graham. Frank, did you wish to speak?
Hello everyone, my name is Frank. I'm the applicant. I designed the extension, which essentially has got a subjectively small variation on the parapet wall on the southern side. I was hoping that we could perhaps show the plans on the screen, if that was on the attachments of the agenda. But
I think everyone will have
yeah.
gone through the agenda and the attachments,
So
and it's in front of us.
The main intent of the proposal is to try and keep most of the existing house roughly as it is, and just trying to use a connecting path that is at the rear of the house, which is sort of what's driven the parapet wall requirement. We have chatted about a couple of alternatives, and given the sort of restrictions in Hilton and heritage concerns, we're sort of forced to kind of go into the corner. And yeah, I attempted to do so in what I thought the best way was to try and sort of achieve that without redoing lots of existing house. So the wall actually follows the same height of an existing parapet wall that exists there at the moment. It's no higher than an existing patio or pergola that exists there. And like Graham, the owner, said, the adjoining neighbours completely fine with it. So yeah, I just wanted to just run you guys through that, and if you had any questions. Thanks a lot.
Great, thank you. Were there any other speakers on the item? Okay, and any questions of the designer architect? All right, okay. All right, we'll look for someone to move one of these two.
Thanks. I'll move the alternative. Thank you.
And a seconder for the alternate, Councillor Sullivan. All right.
Thank you. Yeah, I put the alternative up after having had the opportunity to go and visit the site, and particularly, two things struck me about this, and the reason why I did want to bring this forward is that there is an existing parapet wall, and I think it's figure 4 in the agenda item, which shows that existing structure and the extension that would occur there. And also it does show the existing patio or pergola type structure, which in essence has the same impact on neighbours as what is being proposed from a shadowing impact on that neighbouring property. And also, this is one of those ongoing challenges of the local planning policy that we have in Hilton, which does, make those requirements to be putting any additions to the rear and to the side of properties, and for them to be structured somewhat differently to the existing or the current Hilton homes. And I think, in this instance, there's been an opportunity to balance that, and this design's been able to do that. And to the point that the applicant made, with no objection from the neighbour directly impacted, I think it's supportable for approval.
Any other comments on the alternate motion before us to approve?
I'll just say as the seconder, I mean, what strikes me most of all is, you know, when you've got these sort of battle axes that the Planning Commission sees fit to approve with very little space at the rear of existing houses, but an expectation that they remain as good family houses. It is very challenging, and this is a clear example of that, and that's where you know, policies do need to be flexible enough to allow these types of additions to go ahead. It doesn't have a great impact at all in terms of streetscape or the like, so it's not causing the level of harm. It's keeping the classic Hilton front garden and all of that, so it passes the test.
Any other comments? All right, well then I'll put that up for a vote. All those in favour of the alternate motion? That's unanimous. That's an approval tonight. Thank you. Okay, now the next item that we have speakers for was number 9. That is the cantonment cooperation deed. Now there's a few people that I did not tick off, so I'll call their name to see if they're here, and if they want to speak before the item, you're more than welcome to. I've got Patty. Patty? Nope. Okay. Mick Cordis? Oh, it's Michael. I wrote you down twice. And I guess that is that. Is there anyone else that didn't speak that would like to speak on item 9? Okay, then I'll ask for someone to move the item and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Williamson Wong and seconded by Councillor Moughlin. Great. Did you wish to open debate?
Yeah, I'm going to go straight into it, but I'm happy to introduce why I have the amendment first, perhaps, and then I'll move at the end. I mean, we're back here again, we're talking about the same thing. Over the previous 2 years, we've heard and seen clearly that the skating history of the Cantonment Street precinct is not only ongoing, but it's world-class and something that we should be extremely proud of. Just last night, the WA Skating Association received the Active Citizenship Community Group of the Year award, and you can clearly see why tonight. It's clear that skateboarding is a vital part of Fremantle's history, and we should embrace the opportunity, and I think the duty, to ensure that skateboarding remains welcome in Fremantle. As we all know, the process of the development application for the Wool Stores building led to the approval of removal of sections of the ledge, which was in opposition to our council's position previously. This item is a deed between the 2 big developers in the Cantonment Street precinct, Sorona and HU, as well as the city being a party to that deed. The common thread through all of the discussions we've had around Cantonment Street precinct and the Wool Stores development application has been that street skateboarding relies heavily on the public realm, which is something that we are responsible for as the city. So I do think it's great we're seeing forward thinking and collaboration between the developers and the city in terms of ensuring that our public realm matches the investment in the area. But the deed is great, but it is not just financial or legal. As Rowan mentioned, it also includes the key design principles that will guide the project. And when I read it, I was disappointed to see that there's no mention of skateboarding at all. And I understand that the WA Skate Association might not be mentioned explicitly. They're not a party to the deed. They're not bringing $1 million to the table, but to have them not even mentioned in the key design principles or skateboarding generally, I think is a great loss and it needs to be fixed. We all know that Fremantle is becoming gentrified, and we also know that we need new housing, but we cannot let new development wipe out communities that have existed for decades in our city. It's also up to us as a council to set the direction for the city and to make that extremely clear. And it's an exciting opportunity because the public realm is our responsibility. This is the bit we can have some control over. So it's great. Here we are coming to the table with developers and money to design something good for everyone. but we need to make sure that everybody is at the table. As Michael spoke about in his speech, we have consistently used skateboarding in our marketing of Fremantle. It doesn't pass the pub test to then ignore skateboarders during the design process. While we are not able to change the wording of the deed now, this amendment is a clear direction to the people who will be in meetings with HU and Sorona to include WA Skate Association in the design process of this public realm. I also know that words are extremely important, so I'd like to move the amendment, but also a minor change to the amendment, please, which is to change the word.
Let's see if you have a
Sorry.
seconder first. Councillor Sullivan, okay.
Thank you. Change the word point 3A, requesting that the WA Skate Association be invited to collaborate rather than contribute, please. Thank you. Collaborate to within in the design process. Yeah. Thank you. Are you happy with that? Collaborate.
Are you happy with that,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Sullivan? Okay.
I will
So now
open it up.
we're speaking to the amendment now.
Correct.
Just so everyone is clear.
Now that we're speaking to the amendment, I guess I think it's really important that we are clear that this is a deed that, yes, is between developers, but is also with the city as a partner. And this has been a kind of long and up and down and disappointing end to lots of discussions we've had around skateboarding and the place that skateboarding has in our city. But it's also the time where we get to bring our beliefs and our values to the table and kind of push a bit harder on the actual design of something. So often we see designs come to us, and I know we sit around these tables and think, oh, if only it was done this way or that way, or the public realm isn't going to match what the development looks like. And this is an opportunity for us to make sure that we design something that not only works for the new development, but also the existing communities and is done in collaboration. And so I would really appreciate everybody supporting it this evening.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. Speaking on, I want to thank Councillor Williamson Wong for bringing the amendment forward and also for agreeing to include some of my thoughts and wording into it as well. So thank you for that. The conflict that we've seen over this issue for a while now is been really sad, because I think all parties originally were very keen to work together. I'm not sure there was a conscious attempt to trick people into just participating without getting an outcome or anything like that. But unfortunately, right at the end, it did get very controversial and very conflict orientated. But I think there is an opportunity and almost a responsibility for the council and the city to try and bring those things back together. And I'm pretty confident that we can do that, because the developer's a good developer. We're all good people. We all have Fremantle at heart. And there is opportunities that go beyond the original that can absolutely be explored and should be explored. And that's what this amendment is in part talking to. The amendment will help, I hope, this process, I hope, and the processes that go beyond just the Cantonment Street precinct, i.e. the Princess May Reserve process, I think is a real opportunity to heal any wounds that have been created through this process. But it also is important that, the public realm is our responsibility, and the council itself needs to set the direction for what the public realm should provide for. And we haven't really had that opportunity, and this amendment tries to speak to that by including that the area needs to have not only a skate opportunity to keep the street skating alive, but also, and whether that's on the existing ledge or the bit of the ledge that the developer has said originally that they would keep and would be available for skatings at some stages of days or weeks or whenever, or whether that's in the street or whether that's in Princess May Reserve. That's the detail that needs to be worked out now and worked out over a long period of time as well, because these things are always going to change. So we need to always think that, well, you know, what we do today might be different to what we do tomorrow. But what I want to make sure we do today is set the framework or the thoughts, if you like, the brief, if you like, for the spaces that we're talking about. For me, one of the most exciting things that happened in the last 12 months is to not only get one co-living proposal, to get two co-living proposals within the same precinct, and now to see an application for student housing, means that the probability is there are going to be hundreds of students / young people living in this precinct. And we need a brief. We need to make sure that we identify that those young people have needs, and they certainly have needs for not only passive recreation, but for active recreation as well. And whether that be skateboarding, basketball, 3-on-3 court, or other activities, there is a perfect opportunity for us to start contemplating that and incorporating that in design, and making sure that that the design focuses on the precinct with that in mind. So it might, there might be no skatable objects actually in Cantonment Street. I don't know, but I want to make sure that the city officers and the money that's going to be spent is targeted in a way that it doesn't preclude opportunities for skatable objects wherever they can be identified, and whether that's in the park or in Cantonment Street, that's yet to come. But we must set the brief, and that's what this amendment is basically doing, and that's why I commend it to you.
Can I ask a question? Is that allowed? So having saw this when we all did, I just have a question for Councillor Williamson-Wong about the intention, because I read point 3 as I'll get to my comments later about that, but is 3A the intention on that to have the WASA as part of the deed when the design with the developers are happening, or can you maybe just clarify the intention behind what you want to see happen if this is approved?
Thanks. I can discuss my intention, but I guess the point that we're at now is important to clarify. We can't change the wording of the deed document, nor can the WA Skate Association become a party to that deed at this point, because that has been drafted, and WA Skate Association are not kind of the same level of partner to the deed. The intention is that the city, as a party to that deed, will be ensuring that the WA Skate Association is invited to collaborate in the design process and through the conversations. If I was to go back in time, and would I try and legally draft a way to get them in the deed? Of course I would, but we can't do that. So that's the intention of that.
We represent their needs.
Yeah, thank you. And Councillor Sullivan has put it in good words. As a city, it's our job to represent the needs of the skateboarding community, and that's why this is in there.
Councillor Kamado, on the amendment.
Yeah, on the amendment, and first of all, I'd like to thank the speakers that came in tonight and have spoken so passionately. It's been an ongoing saga, this particular issue, and yeah, thanks also to Councillor Williamson-Wong, who's very passionate and supportive of the group. So I certainly agree with the intent of this amendment. I think that the skaters, along with other key stakeholders in the area, certainly deserve to be heard. And this is both developments are very important, in areas that have been crying out for development for many, many years. And the difficulty I have is seeing one group singled out in this particular amendment, the way it's worded. I've got no problem supporting B and C, but if it can be voted on in parts, I would myself steer away from A, because I think it should be, the intent of the deed should be for everyone to be working together. And I think it's still, by having B and C, we're still highlighting the fact that the skateboarders certainly deserve to be part of that conversation. Yeah, I do think there's, once the elders development is completed, I really find it I find it difficult to see how it can coexist with the future uses of the area and the skateboarding along that ledge. And so I certainly encourage exploring opportunities to support ongoing street skating within Cantonment Street Precinct and Princess May area, and obviously C as well. So yeah, that's just, if it can be voted on in parts, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kamada. Any other comments from elected members? Councillor Moughlin.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just say that, yeah, I support the amendment, and what the amendment doesn't do, it doesn't presuppose what an outcome would be. It does talk to the opportunity. So maybe, the point that Councillor Kamada was making about that precinct changing, it gives us the opportunity to consider how that precinct looks in the future, and does take into consideration, yeah, there'll be hundreds of people ideally moving through that area who are pedestrian and living and recreating as well in that area, and how can we help skating and the other uses coexist, and let's see what comes from the process. Obviously, yeah, there are other stakeholders that need to be engaged as part of that design process too, and I trust that the city will seek out those stakeholders as part of that.
All right. I'm normally trying not to speak too much, but I'm just going to say a little bit on the amendment, because I have been a really steadfast supporter of the WASA and the ledge in the past. And there are a lot of other stakeholders in this process, as has been brought up. Clancy's, St. Pat's. You've got people that currently live in those apartments there on Cantonment Street, and I guess I would just see that as our role as the city, is to engage with everybody. And for me, I would definitely make sure that the skateboarding community would have been a part of that. So I'm just going to wonder if perhaps a minor amendment could be entertained that would say WA Skate Association and other entities in the area, or others, I hate the word stakeholders, but other folks would be a part of collaborate in the design process, so that way precinct stakeholders, or words to that effect by the mover. Just, I understand the desire to specifically include the Skate Association, and again, I would assume that would be business as usual for the city. I just would worry that other people may feel that they would not be given the same level of collaboration. So just asking if the...
Am I allowed? I want to close on the amendment, but if I speak now...
You haven't closed yet. I'm just kind of asked a question if there would potentially be a minor, if that's amenable.
I would be wary about putting that in, only because the intention, and I guess to answer your point, is the reason that the WA Skate Association is, I guess, named, is that the intention of 3 is to talk about skateboarding within the Cantonment Street Precinct. The WA Skate Association are our peak body, and they're also the group who has led kind of the responsibility of the Wool Stores Ledge campaign and community activation, and to include other relevant precinct stakeholders. While I agree they need to be consulted during this process, they are not being consulted on because of the skate ability of our public realm. And I also think, in terms of stakeholders, our skateboarding community are the ones who are using our public realm in ways that we might not expect, and so their input through the design process in a very specific way is important. And I actually also just don't think that the other precinct stakeholders fall within the intention of the amendment, which is skateboarding, not general design principles.
Fair enough. If there's no other speakers on the amendment, we can go back to Councillor Williamson Wong to close.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was some of what I was going to say. I think also two things came to mind as I was listening to people, well, three. The first being that it's our job as a council to represent our community, and yes, I completely agree, we need to be consulting and talking to all of our relevant stakeholders, but in this specific area, we can all be clear that the community group that has, will be affected the most probably, and has been there trying to engage and has been engaging with the process for the longest, is our skateboarding community. And something that Rowan was quoted on last night in as the representative of the winner of the award was that skateboarders are often viewed as outsiders, but actually they're committed to being part of this community. And I think we see that tonight, and we've seen that throughout the last 2 years. This is not a group who are, throwing us crazy ideas or trying to being, they've been upstanding in their engagement with us, and to, I guess, respect that and work with our community rather than saying we'll work with you when we're ready to, I think is a good move. And I guess the last thing is that just like any design process, the classic saying, well, if we want skateboarding to continue at all, which, as we know, the precinct will change, we're going to have all these new people, new businesses, how does that work? Well, we should probably ask the skateboarders that we have in our community who have skated, I know, around the globe and in many busy precincts. We might not have a precinct like we're going to have, hopefully, in Cantonment Street in Australia yet, but that doesn't mean that this might not be the one that will show that we can have active street skateboarding in a city that is populated just like we have across the world. And there's no reason to say that Woolstores Ledge might not go, but we might not have an amazing skate precinct ongoing. So thank you for your support for this amendment tonight.
Great. And there was a request to move this in parts, so we'll do that. So we'll start with just 3, and then we'll do the letters separately. I think that was the request. Okay, we'll do vote. We'll move, if I can move it in parts, to 3, B, and C. Is that the intention, Councillor Kamada? Okay, we'll put those up for vote, and then we'll bring part A up for a separate vote. All right, so we're starting with 3, B, and C. All those in favor? That's unanimous. And now we'll do part A. All those in favor? All those against? Councillor Kamada, and that's carried as well. All right, now we're on to the item as amended. Okay. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. I haven't spoken. I've only spoken on the amendment. So, late today, I did send an email through to the CEO with a few questions. I'm not sure whether he had the opportunity to have a look at it because it's quite late in the day. But I just wanted to go through a couple of them, particularly the one that might require some additional clarification. The first one of them is the issue of utilising the percent for art that comes from both of the developments. And while I'm very supportive that we effectively raid that kitty temporarily, is the way I would describe it, to help us fund in a timely manner the works to the streetscape. I'm not keen on basically taking funds that are set aside for a percent for art policy and then never using those funds ever on public artworks. So I just want to seek clarity about that, because my understanding has always been that the intent of this was to enable those funds that the developers were going to have to contribute, either with themselves spending money on artworks or providing the money to the city where we would put it into the art reserve and spend it on artworks at some future date. I want to make sure that we're sticking with that policy and that we're just doing some creative moving of funds to make sure that we can complete the urban realm quickly and that we can come back later and do artworks. The city can do the artworks much later on. So I'll ask that question first.
Through the chair, you're right. We are trying to forward fund and make sure these urban realm works take place. I think it is also the intent that public art would occur through some of that design, by the way, that it's not totally eliminated. Currently, we're out for advertising on our public art strategy. I think that is just about closed, if it's not closed, so we'll be bringing that back shortly and talking to council how we do fund that ourselves moving forward and ensure that funding goes into that. At the moment, our eyes are only on how we might fund the public realm works and get those two developments going forward. Well, when we come back to council, we'll start to talk about how we fund public art moving forward through the strategy, through the long-term financial plan.
So, I mean, this is really important because, one, it's a very large amount of money, but it's also potentially changing significant policy on the run without really addressing it with the community. So, quite directly, under the current planning approvals, that money is allocated for public art. Will it still be required at some stage for the city to spend that money on public artwork?
Through the chair, Andrew, I think I'm understanding this right. Well, I think what we need to start off with is an understanding that it was the DAP decision that enabled that 1% for art to be spent on public realm works, and we imagine the Serona development DA that is imminent will seek the same adjustment to that public art policy. So it's not us making that decision on the run. It was part of that approval process. So it would appear on surface we will have approximately 2.1 million from the developer for public realm. Should we wish to spend a component of that on public art in the precinct, that's something that the design, the council and funding partners can agree. I think to get to the crux of your point is if we don't spend all that 4.2 million, if you like, on public art, which we won't, is there a potential funding mechanism for the council to top up what would have been available for public art into perhaps some public art reserve? But that would, of course, would be dealt with separately to this deed, which is just about Cantonment Street. Have I understood the question?
Sorry, I'm just reading. So you're saying that clause 34 of DAP's approval gives pre-existing approval for that money to be used on matters that are not public art. Well, you'd have to ask the chair.
Did that answer your question, Councillor Sullivan?
Well, I'm just trying to read the...
Okay, perhaps we could move to Councillor Williams-Simon. Do you have a similar question?
Yeah, I guess a clarifying question for me. So the deed as it stands, HU will be contributing 1.1, Serona 1 and the city 2.1. The city's contribution of 2.1, is that money the 1% for art that has been waived to public, to art that we're saying is going to go to public realm, or is that 2.1 money that's pulled from existing percent for art from different planning approvals?
Through the chair, that 2.1 notional contribution from the city, and that's subject to council approval, is in the deed as sort of matching funds to the 1 million and the 1.1 million that's coming from development, and those two development contributions are instead of percent for art, but it's transferred across to spending it on public realm. So we're saying there's 2.1 from the private sector, If we match it with city funds, it's got no connection with public art. We've got a potential project of 4.2, which is actually a good deal for the city to get public realm upgrades. It's up to the project team, the council and partners as to how much of that might go into public art. And if we feel there's a shortfall of funding of public art across the city at the end of this project, then that's a budgeting consideration.
To clarify once more, thank you. The 2.1 that will become a budget discussion, we're not suggesting in this deed or in the decision comes from existing pooled funds from previous percent for art contributions.
Correct.
Thank you.
Did you have a clarifying or follow-up question, Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you for pointing that clause out to me. I wasn't aware that the JDAP had the power to basically change our local planning policy in that way. So it is a great concern to me that a state planning decision-making authority can completely rewrite a local planning policy without reference to the council or to the community that actually put that policy in play. But I better not say any more because as a JDAP member, I imagine technically not supposed to. The other issues that I raised were the budget size and looking at the $4.2 million that might be available and thinking about the area. It doesn't come out a hell of a lot per square metre. And I'm just, I guess, asked the question, when will we be in a position to know whether that's going to be adequate, and will that be before we have to start signing off on the budget process? Because I don't, obviously I want the area to be done well and be successful, and I want to make sure that we set the right budget. So is the $580 a square metre that might be available going to be enough? And when will we know that?
Through the chair, great question. We can't answer it at this point in time. It's a bit of an iterative process. You could spend $2 million in that precinct and just plant the trees and put some benches in and a skate ledge, or you could put 10 million into that and do a complete overhaul of the precinct. It really is how long's a bit of string. As a client body with our funding partners, we can set the budget and design to it. And if it's obviously way too short for a kind of outcome that the council wants, then we would need to consider putting extra funding in. But we're comfortable that 4.2 is a good starting point. And we'll come up with design options through this process. It'll be a council decision ultimately how much is funded, and that will determine scope ultimately.
Thank you. One of the questions was also about the strip of land along Cantonment Street, basically where the ledge is, which is 100% owned by the developer. So half of that footpath is theirs and the other half is ours. Presumably they are funding 100% their component. Is that correct?
Through the chair, at the moment, that detail hasn't been discussed. Of course, there's also other financial considerations like reinstatement costs and bonds. We haven't got into that detail yet, but we are aware, I think it's about 3.5 metres of what looks like public realm where the ledge is, as you quite correctly state, is private land. And we haven't worked out the details as to exactly who pays for what. So that will come back.
So perhaps if I put it a different way, would your expectation be that the city would normally require them to fund their works on their private land and not see city funds going onto private land, which would probably be against the Act anyway?
Through the chair, that would be our starting position, absolutely, but it would be all part of the negotiation.
Just lastly, and it's probably a little bit ancillary to the motion, but the timelines in the agreement without going into detail, obviously, because it was confidential, basically indicate that the design work is advanced, that the concepts were potentially supposed to be completed by the end of last month. So I'm just wondering, is there a bit of an update on that as to when concepts are likely to be developed? Have they already been developed? And when elected members and the broader community might get to see them?
No, it hasn't been designed. It's the you're quite right. The table is out of date. I think that goes back to about October, November when we finalised some of those timelines. That would need updating before signing, and then the process would start.
Sorry, can I jump
yes,
in
CEO.
Through the chair, not to enter debate, but to maybe just clarify a few things. The key principle of the agreement is for the city to take control of the design and implementation of the urban fabric around this development and to work with the developers to show goodwill and intent that we will come to the party as long as they get up and start undertaking these developments. That's been a big basis of the conversation, because prior to that, there was a lot of conversation about maybe the developers themselves undertaking the public realm works to a standard that maybe the city couldn't afford, to be fair, to maintain. So we take control back, we'll design it, and we'll make it consistent to the fabric that we want to see around Fremantle in an affordable and relevant way. Yeah. So recently last year, we talked about us having design guidelines for our streets and urban realms, maybe into different precincts. And what this agreement does is allows us to take these funds and make sure that we have a bit of control over design. We certainly appreciate the feedback on who to consult with and make sure that we're doing the right thing with that. But really, that's the purpose of the agreement. Its also purpose is to signal to the development world that the city is prepared to work with developers who are prepared to come to Fremantle and undertake development to make sure we're getting the public realm around that development right as well. Yep. So it isn't intended to be a de facto planning condition situation, but a signal to the development industry that we are prepared to be there with them when they're undertaking development to try and ensure the public realm suits the development they're doing. One of our officers was at the Property Council this morning. It was a big part of the conversation at the Property Council in a positive manner. So it's sending the right signal to the right people at the right time. We are trying to get developers to not just put in development applications, but move forward on that. So that's what this does. I guess the best thing that we can do now is maybe try and wrap this up with the developers and talk about what we might do there in a way that suits our policies for the urban fabric that we adopted last year. It may cost a little more. We agree with that. We may want to do a bit more public art. We agree with that. But they're all conversations that are still to be had as we move forward. They're not finite yet. This is the start of the process, not the end.
Councillor Sullivan, further questions?
Yeah.
Or
sorry, I've asked all my questions, so I'll just finish my input. And look, I totally agree with the CEO. I mean, I hope that no one takes my detailed concerns as being unsupportive of the work that the staff have done and in basically bringing forward what I have been calling for many years, which is that we as a city, we as a council, need to make sure that we are working hand in glove with developers to make sure that public realms are improved at the appropriate time along with development. And that, as I've said and as said in this agreement, that one of the main purposes of doing that is to reach a position where there is absolute confidence that the public realm will be redeveloped, will be upgraded at the same time as development, so that people buying into those units know exactly what they're going to get, not only in the units, but also in the surrounding areas. And that is why I felt it's not only important to do this deed and to allocate the funds as soon as possible, and to understand that we can allocate sufficient funds to do it to the standard, the level that we as a community feel comfortable with, and hopefully that information will come through soon. But that we also identify what the vision for the area will be. You know, I've said it before, we should be also bringing forward exactly when we're going to do Princess May Reserve and exactly what our vision is for that area. And I've said to my colleagues and the staff regularly that we should be starting that now, because people buying into those units deserve the opportunity to understand what the broader precinct's going to be like. And we need a vision for that. So I totally agree with what the CEO just said, and I am absolutely supportive of this, but there's still a responsibility to dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure that everything is being looked at appropriately. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Any further comment from elected members? Is he closing or no?
If no one else wants to speak, I'll close.
I just wanted to say, if you just 30 seconds, and I'll be quick, because I just wanted to say that, you know, this it is pretty concerning. I agree with Councillor Sullivan that the state panel, in effect, is changing our 1% for the arts policy without input from our community or from this council, reallocating those funds for a purpose that, you know, isn't what it was, the policy was intended for. And I completely understand why the property council would be overjoyed with that. But the reality is we don't have control over that decision. We have very little control. So this deed, I look at it as giving us some bit of input into how that money, just as the CEO said. But we've also kind of shifted. We used to have a destination marketing committee or group, and now we have a destination development group. So as we kind of shift our focus as a city, being prepared to welcome developments like this, I think is also important. So look forward to seeing how this one goes. But yeah, I just also wanted to express my really concern about undermining funding for the arts, and hopefully we can figure out a way to ensure that that doesn't happen more in the future. Councillor Williamson Wong to close.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I wanted to thank Councillor Sullivan for his thoughts on this as well, and help in getting the amendment written, and also the staff for helping me draft it. And also thank the CEO for his clarification about the way that the city will be the people who are responsible for the design. Just quickly, there was input by councillors on the JDAP panel. I did not vote in support of changing our policy. That's all I'll be able to say on that. And I do agree that if this deed is about public realm works, we need to be firm that we shouldn't be funding works on private property. And also to thank you all for your support in the amendment. I think sometimes, yes, as a city, we should be, of course, engaging with our stakeholders, and yet it is important to say the quiet bit out loud. And so thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Councillor Williamson Wong, we'll put that item as amended up for a vote. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. All right, and that includes the amendment included the WASA folks. Now, we're gonna go back to the beginning of the agenda, and we'll work through the items, starting with item number 1. And let me pull that up myself. This is the advertising amendments to LPP 2.9. There we go, right in front of us. Do we have a mover for this? Mover and seconder? Councillor Moughlin, Councillor Kamado. All right, any comments, debate? Seeing none, we'll put this item up for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous, great. And now, oops. Number 3, that's right, we did number 2. And item 3 is the scheme amendment for non-conforming density. Can we get a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Slaughter moved, seconded by Councillor Williamson Wong. Any debate? Seeing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor? Great, that's unanimous. 4, then 5, then 6. All right, item 7, there is an amendment. So if we can get a mover and seconder for item 7. This is the Matilda Bay Brewery Site Structure Plan. Moved by Councillor Williamson Wong, seconded by Councillor Slaughter. Any discussion?
I'm happy to go straight to an amendment if that's
You're
appropriate.
proposing the amendment. Can we get a seconder for the amendment? Wait, oh, yes, question. There are two proposed amendments. One is this one that we see now, and there was a second one at the very end, which was much shorter.
Yeah.
Can we clarify which one you are moving, Councillor Sullivan?
I like short ones, but I'm going to move my one.
All right. Do we have a seconder for the long version? Councillor Williamson-Wong seconded. All right. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. And size is not always the measure of things. And the reason mine is detailed and is primarily in a similar vein to what I was saying about the Princess May and Cantonment Street, that we actually do need to set clarity in terms of a brief for an area. Look, obviously the Matilda Bay Brewery site was, for me, greatly disappointing. I thought there were some real merits in the previous proposal, but there were some fatal flaws in it as well, and obviously it was refused. But it did have some really great aspects to it, very well thought out, and some of the buildings were, I think, significantly better than the other developments that we're seeing. For example, the one up in Claremont on Stirling Highway. I thought the proposal down here was significantly better than that one. I think it was significantly better than the Scarborough Beach one that you're seeing in the newspapers at the moment. So for me, it's disappointing. But it's disappointing on a number of levels in the sense that we lost an opportunity. We're going to miss out on probably more than $2 million worth of rates every year for as long as development doesn't occur on that site. And we might even miss the window of development opportunity because these things are cyclical. At the moment it seems that there is a little bit of a rush on to get approvals for fairly substantial developments like the one that we would expect to see on the Matilda Bay site. So we need a good planning base, and what concerns me is that we need a planning base that actually acts as a catalyst for development to occur. It's no good just sitting around waiting and going, well, it'd be nice if someone came and developed this piece of land. We need to know that our scheme requirements are actually capable of development going ahead. That's not to say that we should give them free rein on everything, but there are things which we could anticipate that they might need to redevelop those sites, and there are things that we can equally anticipate are going to be essential to protect our community from overdevelopment or inappropriate development or development that doesn't stagger down and blend in with the existing developments of the areas. So it is important to get our planning right for that site, and it's important that we get it right in a timely manner and not just sort of go, well, we'll just wait for the developer to tell us what they're thinking whenever that sort of happens. So I guess my amendment is trying to highlight, one, that it's important that we do have a structure plan that is fit for purpose. And when I saw that we were simply going to put back in the height policy, which we've all agreed is no longer relevant, or mostly no longer relevant, but that we weren't going to be trying to improve that situation with new height controls, it made me realise that, well, in fact, we should be trying to get a revised structure plan for the whole site. And so that's what I'm trying to propose here. It's not saying that we will necessarily write the revised structure plan ourselves. It's not saying that it has to happen. It's basically saying we would like to work collaboratively with the developer or the owners of the land, I should say, and it's more than one owner, to seek the timely modification of the structure plan that sits across that site. And it goes into talk about some of the main elements that need to be improved and in the A, Bs and Cs and the like. The main one obviously is the height controls. And as I said, they do need to be responsive and they to developer needs in terms of, it's basically asking the question, what is the height control regime that will attract a development? Because there's no point writing a scheme that no one's ever going to respond to. So we do, and we have in the past been pragmatic enough and collaborative enough to try and find out what those height controls would need to be to attract development, but at the same time protect the community to the south and to the east. So A and B are doing that. The other major issue in the area, I think, is, and it's a bit like the Cantonment Street conversation that we've just had, is that we've got a massive amount of development happening there, but we have no idea what McCabe Street is going to be like in the future. And I've asked this council to consider previously that we need a really clear plan for what McCabe Street is capable of becoming, but also how it's going to accommodate all of this development, how it's going to accommodate whatever crazy plan main roads might have for the Stirling Highway intersection, how it's going to assist bringing those communities back together, how it's going to assist with providing the needs of businesses that might be included in that precinct and the like. And we also need to look at the way in which the road that has been controversial forever, potentially going through that site, connecting Thompson Road to McCabe Street. And I know as soon as I raise that, I'll have 1,000 North Fremantle residents screaming at me saying there cannot be any through traffic through there, it's going to create a rat run, etc., etc. But I also have heard for years that the residential side of North Fremantle needs to be integrated with the surrounding area and it's isolated and it's not interconnected, and that good planning makes urban environments interconnected, etc., etc., etc. And I know when I lived in North Fremantle, it drove me insane that I had to drive out onto Stirling Highway to go and get the fish and chips from the only fish and chip shop north of the river in that area, which was in Mosman Park, and that's where you did all this shopping as well. So it's kind of like, I think we need to get over the NIMBYism, and I'll call it that, and get crucified for it, and we actually need to come up with good urban planning that actually creates sensible roads that don't create rat running, but do create interconnectivity and the like. And so that's part of the challenge that we have, is working with the community and with the developer to do that. There are a number of other minor points, but given the time, I won't go into them. The other main one, was the public open space. There are a couple of elements up on the McCabe Street area where we have this piece of public open space which is almost useless because of its steep gradient, but it does potentially provide access from McCabe Street down through this development and through into North Fremantle. I'm talking about pedestrian access, maybe bike access. So the location of public open space shouldn't just be assumed that it's going to be that little funny triangle of land at Thompson Road, because that's just too easy. It should be thought about in terms of what it could contribute to the overall way in which that development site integrates with the surrounding area. So I'll leave that with you and see if I can get support for it.
We are on the Director's Cut Amendment version. Any other comments? Councillor Mofflin.
Thank you. You had me confused there for a second. I thought the Director's Cut was the abridged, edited version in the second one, which ordinarily I have a preference for brevity and would be supportive of that. But Councillor Sullivan has, quite well explained his position and the reasons why they've been included, and I'm happy to support based on that.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Moughlin. Councillor Slaughter?
Thank you. I do have concern that we don't have the capacity on staff to make all these changes. So I am glad that you referenced that it may not necessarily be the city that develops a new structure plan for the area, and that we do it in collaboration with landowners. And some of your points are actually, I think, captured in the amendments. Point A, for example, in ensuring development scale and massing graduates down, has been reflected in the change in 3.1 design objectives in response to McCabe Street height study, lower scale built form to be located around the periphery. So you do have that graduation. So I think that the changes have been well thought through, and you've just put a few more words around it. And I support it for that reason. But I still do worry that with the other planning processes that we have in the works, that it may or may not get the attention it needs.
Thank you, Councillor Slaughter. Any other comments? Did you wish to close, Councillor Sullivan, or?
Yeah, just briefly, just so I pick up the points that were just made. The point about costing is totally relevant. I mean, the director indicated that it might be, $100,000. It certainly would be somewhere between 50 and 100, from what I understand, to do at least an amended structure plan. And I appreciate we don't currently have that in the budget, but I would also emphasise the point that I made, that we are essentially foregoing $2 million of rates for as long as that site is not redeveloped, and that perhaps sometimes we need to find more money, and perhaps sometimes we need to outsource a project like this if we consider it to be extremely important. That conversation is a conversation for another day. But I think what this does is it perhaps highlights that conversation is important to have on that other day. And just to the point that you raised about the graduating scale, yes, I'm aware that that's been in the height controls all along. But I would argue, based on the development application processes that have come before us, that the community that it's supposed to protect are still not feeling all that protected. And so it was really highlighting, but perhaps there is a different way of doing that height control in those areas that would give a little bit more support for the concerns of the surrounding people. And that is also why there is that part there where it talks about the southern side of Coventry Parade, which has really become a development zone in its own right, and that could also help buffer. So it was really about identifying those. I know the community around there have been were very concerned about the proposal. I didn't want to suggest that there would be new height controls without emphasising that there is a fix there that might be a better fix for them. So thank you for raising those points.
All right. All those in favour of the amendment? All those against? Councillor Kamada against. Okay, now we're on the item as amended. Are there any further comments? Seeing none, we'll put this item up for a vote. All those in favour? And all those against? That's unanimous. All right, on to item 8, the most riveting planning information report of 2026 so far. Can we have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Williamson Wong, seconding Councillor Moughlin. Seeing no comment, we'll put that up for a vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Wonderful. And I promise after this one, we can try to move the rest on block. Next, we're on item 10, which is the response to the notice of motion from last August. We have a person to move that item. Moved Councillor Williamson Wong, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Great, and I'll just note that I have prepared an amendment that we'll get to eventually.
I forgot that by moving I open, but now I'm back. Look, I think it's great to see this information report come back to us. We all know that we have an issue with these convenient type shops in Fremantle, and we identified after the notice of motion last year that there are two main, I guess, strategies to deal with them. One is through the local planning scheme, which we know is clunky and takes a lot of time and requires a lot of different people to give us approvals and advertisements for changes, etc. And the second being the kind of criminal aspect and using health or specific legislation to support us to close shops that are selling illegal tobacco. And it's been great to see the WA government respond to that, and hopefully we'll have some a draft bill for us to see in response to that legislative side of things, because I think that's where we'll see the most bang for the buck, basically, and the fastest movement. And we know that South Australia has managed to implement very effective legislation, and so similar to what we have said to the WA government before, I hope we can continue to support that style of legislation. And the WA government have said that we're going to have the best legislation in Australia. So let's hope that they can, I don't know, find some other loophole against, one up South Australia on this.
All right, Councillor Sullivan.
Thanks. Yeah, and I kind of share but don't share the passion and the support that Councillor Williamson Wong just provided for the state. It does feel like that the state is a giant turtle slowly wandering across the plain with an objective in mind that they might get there eventually and rewrite the laws and the like. And it would be very impressive if they are the world's best laws, but there are some very bloody adequate ones already in existence throughout Australia that could be implemented just about tomorrow. I don't want to be sitting in Fremantle and watching a heritage building in the West End get bombed or a car driven through it or people injured in the process because we haven't actually tackled the problem as directly as it clearly needs to be tackled. So the notion of scheme amendments and using the planning scheme and everything is all well and good, and we should probably do that. But the reality is is that we need to close the ridiculous legislative loopholes that exist, and we need to get on and do it as fast as possible as a society. And I don't want to bag the state government, but I know that people who know much more about the law than I do have been saying to them, you don't need to write the world's best piece of legislation. You can pretty well fix it tomorrow. Please just do that.
Councillor Moughlin.
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Sullivan, and it has been disappointing that the state essentially watched as this industry proliferated across Western Australia. We had indications of this well before it being established here on the East Coast, and everything that comes with it, and the criminal activity, not just of the illegal tobacco, but everything else that surrounds that. And they were sitting on their hands watching, and I think they've removed their hands and they're not sitting on them anymore. But it is relatively straightforward to make changes and implement legislation that will make a difference to that. And whilst we can do the best we can, the best we can do will make very little difference to what we see on our streets at the moment. So picking up on this particular officer's recommendation, point 2 in regards to continuing to engage with relevant authorities. I don't think we can suggest that I think in the strongest possible terms possible, we should continue to engage with relevant authorities and tell them to hurry up and get the legislation in place and enact it and resource it, the enforcement appropriately such that this scourge is shut down.
Thank you, Councillor Moughlin. Councillor Clark.
I concur with everyone who's spoken before me this evening on this matter. This has been, it is a scourge. It started some time ago, and members of our community, business owners, have all been screaming out about this, and business owners who are around these we call them con stores. They're not convenience stores at all. They're just con stores. They're shutting down the legitimate convenience stores. They're creating risk to our people who are running businesses either side of those con stores. They're creating risk to the people who potentially live above and behind them too. We've got citizens all around those buildings if they are attacked in any way, and that has been occurring on a more regular basis. And when we know that in Melbourne, the last number I saw, and that was probably 6 months ago or more, was 110 fire bombings. So it has started here. It must not come to Fremantle. We will do everything we can to, whatever the government needs assistance, they just need to get these laws underway so they can start raiding them, shutting them down, finding landlords who are knowingly allow them to open, and finding the people who are behind them. So I'm really looking forward to the day when we as a council and city get all the complaints about all the empty shops in Fremantle, because all those con stores have been effectively shut down by our government and our law enforcement.
Great. After hearing all of that, I would just like to move an amendment. Something we prepared earlier, if there's a seconder for that amendment. Councillor Kamado. Look, yes, we're not going to stop advocating to the relevant authorities for them to do what they need to do. It is very clear that we have one thing that's within our remit at this point in time, and that is engaging with our planning scheme. And if we had maybe considered this, 15, 18 months ago when this was first brought to our attention, it may have gone through the process and been approved right now. We wouldn't have twice as many shops as we did 18 months ago. But adopting this amendment means that we are doing everything that we can. And as a council, we'll be able to decide when and where and if more of these shops open up in our city. So I think that's a very good thing. And also, just earlier tonight, we approved a pottery studio. Someone had to come and get permission to have a pottery studio in an industrial area. Now, I think that's a bit wonderful that we were able to approve that, but we should at least have that same level of scrutiny for more of these kinds of shops opening up in our city, as we just had to grant approval for a pottery studio. So I hope that this amendment will get approved, because that way at least we can show as a local council, we're moving to do everything that we can to curb the spread of these shops. And hopefully we'll see some action from the state government soon as well, because if we're doing this, then hopefully they'll come to the party and do some real enforcement on this issue. So, is there any other comments on the amendment? Councillor Kamara.
Yeah, just I'll be brief. Just to support the comments that you've just made. I think we all find it amazing that this has taken so long, and as Councillor Sullivan said, we need to close legislative loopholes that currently exist, and anything we can do, including this little tiny amendment that goes with these other requests that the city will work on, anything we can do in our power we need to do, because certainly the community is not happy with the situation. It's a dangerous situation, and I support this particular motion and the amendment.
Thank you. Any other comments on the amendment? Councillor Williams-Wong.
Thanks. I mean, I agree we 100% need our planning scheme controls to change on convenience stores. There's probably also, once we go through our planning scheme, other instances where perhaps the controls that we have are too tight or not quite right with the Fremantle that we want to be continually creating or living in. I guess my hesitation is twofold. One is, I think when we talk about changing planning schemes, yes, in the document it's 4 or 5 letters or however many, but it is not necessarily a small process, and I think we need to be very clear that changing the planning scheme requires multiple rounds of advertising, going back and forth with the WA Planning Commission, and then waiting to see whether or not they even let us do it. And I would like to clarify with the manager or the director about whether or not we would expect, given that we have a planning scheme that is, they've said initiate the new one, and that whether or not it would actually be approved and how much staff time it will take us to put it forward, even just the initial step, I guess, really, to start the process of this scheme amendment.
Through the chair, there's very standard manners and forms that we need to prepare in terms of scheme reporting. We can't just propose a change to our planning scheme without any detailed justification, so that in itself will take some officer time to prepare that and bring it back to council for initiation. Look, we can do it, absolutely. It just means we put off other changes to our planning framework that we're working on. In terms of whether the Commission will receive it positively or not, it's a little bit of an unknown at the moment. There's nothing to say that they can't entertain an amendment to the scheme while we're working on a new one, but their expectation now that they've endorsed our scheme review and accepted our intention to write a new scheme is that we give them a new scheme before too many other things come through.
You have further comment?
Well, I guess the only reason that I've been on the fence about the amendment is whether or not it's going to take up too much of our staff time. But I also think that I didn't realise how positive I sounded when I opened that debate. But, I'm being a bit positive this evening. Sorry, everyone. It is atrocious that the state government have not done anything about this. And now you've all made me really frustrated. But I do think that I'm happy to support the amendment tonight. But I guess my feedback would be that we need to be really clear on our media about this, and if we're going to go forward with a scheme amendment, then I think we need to be sticking it to the state government and making it clear that we're waiting on these new laws and that we're doing everything we can as a local government, and I don't think that it's worth it without bringing it up in the media, is I guess my point, because we might be waiting, we might get a no from the WA Planning Commission, and we also it might take 12-18 months to even get a reply.
Councillor Moughlin on the amendment.
Thanks. I was just responding to Councillor Williamson Wong's original comments. I think it's a worthwhile investment for us to make in terms of time and energy. We can't, I suppose we do have the opportunity to do something, and our community are expecting us to do something. This is what we have in our control, and we should give it a crack regardless of knowing what the outcome would be. And I support the amendment.
Councillor Sullivan on the amendment? Or, oh, sorry, Councillor Slaughter. My apologies.
Thank you. I came away from our briefing the other night thinking that it actually would not be possible, and that the Planning Commission had said we couldn't put forward scheme amendments separate to the new scheme. But I'm hearing slightly differently tonight. Have I missed it? So we can try. Is that the official kind of response?
Yeah, please.
Through the chair, absolutely. There's nothing stopping us from trying.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't anything stopping us from trying, except we do have to spend resources on it. And if it was $20,000, and I'd rather that $20,000 goes towards a part of a structure plan in North Fremantle, because that's really what we need to be doing, not trying to fix the loopholes that the state government, isn't getting on with and fixing. I wasn't keen to support this, but in thinking about it, 18 months might mean that we get to the end of the race well before they do. And because, I don't have a lot of confidence that we're going to see the fix anytime soon. So I don't have a problem with asking the staff to at least initiate this. We can always kill the process at any stage, even if we get approval from the Planning Commission.
Any other comments on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll just put that up for a vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Now, to the item as amended, there was only a few people that hadn't made a comment. All right, I'll go to the mover to close, or no? All right, the item as amended, we'll put that up for a vote. All those in favor? Wonderful, that's unanimous. Great. Okay, now we are towards the end of our agenda. I'm just going to ask, does anyone want to speak on item 11, 12, or 13? 11, okay. Anyone want to speak on 12 or 13? If seeing no one to speak on 12 or 13, can I ask someone to move those two items en bloc? Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. All those in favor? That's unanimous. And now we'll go to item 11, which is the Fremantle Park major event consideration. And can I get a mover? Councillor Moughlin, seconded by Councillor Clark. All right, Councillor Moughlin.
Thank you. And yeah, I suppose it's a question, or rather, yeah, the reason to speak is just a question of clarification from officers, particularly in regards to capacity at Fremantle Park and how this particular event relates to that capacity of attendees, noting that, recent events, or the most recent event was maybe a ballpark 8 to 10,000 attendees. Just a question in regards to how we see what is potentially a different type of event being managed at the site.
Through the chair, typically we would expect a capacity of about 20,000 at Fremantle Park. We are working with the event organiser to try and achieve a similar attendance to what we saw at the most recent major event. However, they have said they're looking at around a 15 to 20,000 attendance. We're obviously trying to bring that down a little bit to minimise impact, but that's what they're thinking at the moment.
Just to clarify, that is a little different to what is included in the application.
I believe the application was in the confidential documents, so just have to be a little careful how we try to answer that.
So just to clarify, what was your specific question about the attendance, the discrepancy?
The discrepancy. So you were talking closer to 15 to 10, and what was included in the application was the other side of that. And my question is in regards to the capacity of Fremantle Park, which you alluded to being ballpark 20. The application was greater than that. And is there, are we comfortable that that particular event can be held with that capacity, or are we going to have to look at something different for it?
Sorry. So what we're asking for approval for tonight is to just go outside of the policy and approve a second event. They would still need to go through the major event approval process. As part of that, we wouldn't find their current estimated attendance to be acceptable, and we would work with them to try and bring that back within our preferred capacity for Fremantle Park.
Thanks for the clarification.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll put that up for a vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous. All right, and carried. Now, we have no statutory reports, committee and working group reports, none. Motions for which previous notice have been given, none. Urgent business, none. Late items, none. Confidential business, we've gone through all that, well, none. And close the meeting at 8:31 p.m. Thank you, everyone.